Berenstein, who I want to thank for making that nice little brochure for all of us. But before I start, I want to make sure that I thank those two people in the back booth there. That's Jim and Pat for making sure this AV equipment works. Everything else is like a breeze as long as this works. Also, and so please, Lord, help me remember it's Cordelia, not Claudia. This is our good friend. For years and years, it's Cordelia, and I don't know where I got this crossed up with Claudia. Okay, but also here tonight is our good friend, State Representative Valerie Gatis. Valerie, stand up. She's not only our state representative, but she was my partner way up in the woods when we slept in these little cabins and so.
In Serbia, Valerie, in Serbia.
Yes, in Serbia, and that was 5 years ago when we were there for the 75th anniversary of this place that I was going to tell you about tonight. Also sitting next to her is my cousin Dennis Astorino, a famous Pittsburgh architect. But what Rose and I just learned tonight is that he was the one that designed the new Masonic Center. So let's give him a great big hand.
He's smart and handsome too, besides
All right. And then over here we have my fellow tenor at the St. Elijah Choir, Mike Olick, and stand up, Mike. And he played his accordion for us last year, and his beautiful girlfriend Claudia. Claudia, there's the real Claudia. And so that, and wait, of course I cannot forget, but you all know Rose Gantner, my sister. Would you please stand up? So thank you all for coming here tonight to sharing this historical adventure. Tonight we're going to be transported via this PowerPoint presentation time machine back to 1944 to the mountainous village of Pranjani, Serbia, where we'll be meeting many of the heroes of Operation Halyard. Here they are, the Serb villagers, members of the OSS, which is the Office of Strategic Services, the 15th Army Air Corps, and the famous General Draža Mihailović. Afterwards, we're going to beam up to the 2019 75th anniversary of Operation Halyard, and finally end tonight's presentation on the airfield site again in Serbia, but this time, September 2024. Again, you all know how grateful I am that you're here tonight. I'm also thankful to our director, Eric Gross, and here's why. I ran into Eric last week when I was running off these papers you have in front of you, and we talked about AI. Everybody knows that I'm a big proponent of AI, and I have this one app called Genie, and it's really like a genie. It works beautifully. But he said the one that he uses is called Perplexity. So when I went back to my apartment, I downloaded the app to see if it worked. Well, wanting to test it out, I asked it a very hard question, one I didn't think it would know the answer to. Who was Hitler's #1 headache in World War II? In less than 2 seconds, the answer came back, General Draža Mihailović, as reported in the Liberty magazine from 1942. So, needless to say, I am now a fan of Perplexity too. Now let's look at the papers that you have in front of you. About Lincoln and Hitler's #1 headache, Draža Mihailović. February 12th was the only day that Karen had available for this talk. Now, being an elementary school teacher, the first thing I said, oh, that's Lincoln's birthday. So we did a force-fit relationship. You could see that these two men, besides both having beards, great beards, they also had great leadership at the times of crises, and they exemplified humanitarianism, and both were strategic decision makers, and both were highly respected for the fight for freedom. Unfortunately, both also died by bullets. Abraham Lincoln by John Wilkes Booth at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., and General Mihailovich by a communist firing squad after a kangaroo trial in Belgrade. Although there has been an $100,000 reward to find Mihailovich's body or grave, for the last 10 years or so, it just hasn't happened. And yet, he lives on in the hearts of all Serbs and all freedom-loving people, especially the families of the rescued 512 airmen, 432 American families, and 80 Allied. Just think about the impact that has had on us. So tonight, we're going to experience the greatest rescue ever from behind enemy lines. So, you ready to go? Okay, you don't even need a passport. Okay. Go, baby. Oh, this is just a reminder from January 28th, 2020, because you see that I have here Carl Walpisk. He was one of my best friends after I learned that this rescued airman lived right here in Moon Township. And so, and there's Valerie when we're on the airplane right here. There's Jim, okay? And again, last year, 5 years ago when I gave this presentation, but we're updating it now. Okay, what was the cause of this? Why were all these airplanes lost? And it's because the Allies tried to take out the Romanian oil fields, which supplied between 35% and 65% of Hitler's strategic oil. It was a shame how many airplanes and how many lives were lost doing this, but it reminded me so much of D-Day, with hundreds of thousands of those poor soldiers rushing the things and so many of them dying. This is what happened to these airmen too. But the courage of the American airmen was way beyond the call of duty. It was like a suicide mission as they faced crack German defenders, but their sacrifices did help shorten the war. All right. Okay, here's our General Mihailovich. I have this painting right here, a similar one. I have this one also, but I look to this for inspiration. It sits right at the foot of my computer desk because he remained true to the ideals of honor, truth, and justice. He electrified the world when he was the very first, to organize a long-scale resistance Hitler, not only in Yugoslavia, but in all of Europe. He was beloved by his loyal followers as much as George Patton was to our American GIs. He was well trained at the Serbian military academy like our West Point, and a veteran of several wars already. A quick history. Before Yugoslavia capitulated to Hitler in April 1941, the following countries had already surrendered ED to Germany during World War II. Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France. So here we come back to Hitler's number one headache. Prince Paul, the regent of Yugoslavia, because Prince Peter was way too young. He was like 11 years old when his father, King Alexander, died. Prince Paul was his uncle who was supposed to be the regent. He surrendered. He decided to yield to Hitler and sign the tripartite pact. But the Serbian people would have none of it. And in 2 days after signing with a military coup, they named Peter the king now at age 16. Churchill said, Yugoslavia has found her soul. But what followed was Operation Punishment. The bombing of Belgrade by Hitler's German Air Force, killing or injuring 17,000 people on Orthodox Sunday, April 6th, 1941. That was a Operation Barbarossa. Because of Operation Barbarossa, Hitler was denied entrance into Russia, and that helped the Allies win the war. There's that book I was just showing you, Hitler's #1 Headache. I also have this magazine, the Time magazine, where he was called the Eagle of the Balkans, and on the cover. Many comic book presentations were made about Draža Mihailović. They called him the Yugoslav MacArthur. Oh, I love this part. Last time I was here, Ed Tosi was still alive. He was one of our residents, and when I was talking, he jumped up and he said, he wasn't just a Serbian hero, he was an American hero. He was my hero too. I went, oh, this is a good story. In 1937, they had the very first Serbian Singing Federation Festival. And as a special attraction, they brought over these 4 Maksimović brothers. One of them is a reporter here. They're 4 brothers. And at the festival, they sang this song called Oi Mariana. La da 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 da, and then Oi Mariana, well, everybody loved it. So they asked them to repeat it, not only on the stage, but at the bar all night long, and everywhere else they went. And so all those different choirs from all those different colonies said, oh, come stay with us, come be with us. And I only learned maybe a couple months ago that they did stay at my grandparents' house too, and that's a whole new story. I could do a whole story on that one. But the one I want you to know about is the church that I go to in El Equipa had, they stayed at the priest's house there. And several years later, the priest died. And at that time, they didn't have any insurance things. And so all the other Serbian priests got together, and they thought that the best thing they could do for the family is to send Bobby over to Belgrade to become a priest. That's his son. There was a daughter and a son. And so anyway, Bobby's over there studying to be a priest when that big bombing comes. And like I said, on that one day, 17,000 people were either killed or injured. And he experienced when that there was a streetcar that blew up, and arms and legs and everything were flying everywhere. And he had what we would say now is PTSD. He just stood there immobilized, he couldn't move. And here, one of these brothers ran past him. Anybody that could move was moving. He was just standing there like a statue. One brother went past him and stopped, and he came back and he said, Božidar, is that you? And it was. And so here he took him up to, he took him to his mother's house, and they stayed there for 2 weeks before they went up to the woods to join Draža Mihailović. And the best part about that was that Bobby could talk both Serbian and English, and so he was invaluable to Draža Mihailović in the rescue that I'm telling you about. Okay. Now we come to my dad, our dad, Rose and I. Okay, it's our dad up in the corner. This was a magazine that he produced in 1948 in different articles, in different magazines. He had the entire diary of Nick Lulich, who was in charge of the operation from August 9th to December 27th, 1944. And so I knew this story from the time I was 7 years old, and yet it was covered up. They wouldn't, our State Department wouldn't let this story out. for many reasons, but it certainly wasn't because this is what I heard this year. In it wasn't nice of me, but I heard the general of NATO or somewhere saying, well, maybe the people just wanted to go back to their farms and forget about it. I says, that's a lie. It was covered up for many different reasons. But anyhow, I knew about this, like I said, from the time I was 7. And now, where we are is in Ypsilanti, Michigan, at the airfield there. This WTOL station, radio station in Toledo, or TV station, flew us up. They came with these little airplanes to Moon Township or wherever these people were, and flew us up to the Ypsilanti airport. So I was able to be there. This is Bud Dowles, and you're going to hear more about him later. There's our Carl Walpus right there. This one here is Clara Musgrove, and I'll never forget, as we were leaving there, he was in another little airplane, and our airplane was going past him, and he was waving like this. Like Alex Mullich, a good friend of mine, says, Mim, you're probably the only living person, one of the few living persons that knew all these people, and it's the truth. Okay. My father worked for the American Superground for this English section editor, but then he left to California to work at the San Francisco Chronicle, and he got his job like connections because his friend Milla Logan, well, her husband was like the vice president or something of the San Francisco Chronicle, so she helped him get that job. However, he left his job as a copy editor when the paper switched sides, just like this. It was like amazing how everybody was praising Mihailovich, and then boom, all of a sudden Mihailovich was cut off, and they switched to Communist Tito. And Milla never forgave my father. I have letters at home where she says, how could you do this, blah, blah, blah. This is from the 40s. And she said it was a sin, and it wasn't forgiven by Milla until the 1980s, as she felt he threw away such a valuable opportunity. However, as his heirs, we think this was the finest legacy to us, to stand up for what you believe in, no matter what the consequences. My father exemplified what most Americans and Serbian people value dearly. In 1951, in National Geographic, an article witnessed a new film called The Magic Sword, being made from a 7th century Serbian fairy tale. The lowly shepherd, after many others, won the princess's hand by defeating all of his rivals by answering the riddle, what's the sharpest thing in the world? What's the strongest? What's the most beautiful? The sharpest thing is the truth or the tongue. What's the strongest? Love. What's the most beautiful? Liberty. Now, here's our airman, Carl Walpus, who has passed away since. But he and I were such good buddies because we went everywhere together giving these talks. This is the first time I met Carl, so he's coming through, he and his wife Virginia are coming through a door here, and I show him this little statue that you see here that was given to my dad by this good friend from Phoenix. And I was showing him this black book that had all the stories that the flyers tried to tell of General Mihailovich. And his wife Virginia says, where's that book, Mim? And then she says, give me. She says, I want to find the page. And she found the exact page where Carl and his friend Paul Mento were there, and they're state troopers now, but they were trying to save Mihailovich before that firing squad that he faced. The bottom picture here shows me in Moon Township getting a citation about that. And here we are at the Holy Trinity Cathedral giving a talk to the men's club, and there Moon Township Commissioners. Carl was also honored at Robert Morris University, even at age 90. He was on at WTA, not this past Veterans Day, but when this was made in 2019. Now we meet Curtis Dowles. This is such a wonderful story. His grandson comes home from his school library with his book, Time Life book, about partisans and Chetniks. And he says, "Grandpa, I thought you'd like to see this book." And he's looking through it, and he sees this picture right here. He says, "My gosh, that's me. That's my whole crew." And he named every one of those guys right there. So Curtis, I'll never forget Curtis, because he was a faithful Serbian supporter until he died. In fact, you're going to see that he even put it on his tombstone. This is an older one, and so now there are many, many more. But he said, "My 15 grandchildren, my 3 great-grandchildren, wouldn't be here if it weren't for the Serbs. I may be old, I may be forgetful, but I will never, ever forget the man nor the Serbians who cared for me in 1944. George Vojinovic. George was very special to me because if any of you know where the Serbian Club is on the south side on 25th Street, 25th and Sarah, we lived on 25th and Carson. So it was just around the corner from us. Well, my grandparents lived right behind where the Serbian Club is right now, 2532 in the alleyway there. George Vojinovic lived where the American Serbian Club's parking lot is now. And then when he was in high school, his dad moved to Ambridge for a job. And so he graduated from Ambridge High School, and he was recognized by the Ambridge Area High School in their Hall of Fame for what he did. He was the main star in that book called The Forgotten 500. And so here's how it happened. His wife, who was working at the State Department, was the very first one to intercept a letter that said about that there were there were Americans that needed rescued over there. So they put together this magnificent plan, and this is the 2 of them right there. This is all about George. George even worked at the Heinz History Center. I put all this stuff here because I want to make sure I remember it myself. That's all his. Now we're going to go to Major George Gavbuslin. He was the first one to parachute into Serbia. And he was real big like me. And so they didn't think that there's going to be like a parachute that could hold him, but he did. He parachuted down into these villages, and he could speak perfect Serbian, so they loved him. But when he tried to organize this plan that they put together, the British tried to stop him 3 different times, and he got mad, and he did it anyhow. They said, "Screw the British." I'll tell you about that a little bit. Okay, but here's the fun part about George. Again, one of my good friends. So he played for Pitt in the Rose Bowl in 1937 until he graduated in 1938. And then, look at this. Wait, that's the Rose Bowl champions. So this is here he is, and he's playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Danny was the one that was responsible for getting me this picture. And here's what he said about when he used to tell stories around the campfire there in Serbia. He said that they only got $25 a game, but they got $35 if they won, and they had to bring their own helmets, which were not the hard helmets that we see them now, but there's like a pilot, those leather helmets before. So, here it is. about at nighttime how he would talk to the downed airmen and tell them about that. If the team won the game, Art Rooney awarded them $35 instead of the $25. Compare that with the millions that you see them having now. These are things that he did later on. And I have this button, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because I paid $17 for that button. It belonged to him, and I bought it at his sister's sale. We were fighting about this here button, but Kosovo is so important to us, and this was that here that was in Kosovo was 1389 when they won the Battle of Kosovo, when they had the Battle of Kosovo, and here it was in Wilmerding, 1937. This is Vidovdan is the most important day. I've said that to Todd DiPostino so many times. June 28th, and here it is in Ravna Gora, Serbia, June 28th, 1944. This is a religious service. These are some of the people from Operation Halyard and the Air Crew Rescue Unit, ACRU. So there's Mihailovic, and now we're going to meet Lalic. Okay, anybody know what's unusual about that first picture? It's in color. So this was colorized. It's not true. They only had black and white then. But now this is the 75th anniversary poster of him. And there's like if you go on YouTube, you can see videos of all of this. Nick Lalic's, he's the one who's, my father did the whole diary on him. Oh, here's something important. Nick Lalic, after the war, got the Legion of Merit award. But in this citation, it said that he was with the partisans. And he says, I was never in the partisans. I never saw a partisan. And they told him to keep quiet or he wouldn't get the award. And he got it, but then afterwards, that's what he said. He wanted to make sure that people knew. Then the lies that were spread about Mihailovic were horrible, saying that he was a Nazi collaborator and everything. Okay. So it was very hard to get the truth out about Mihailovic. This was covered up for like decades, 6 decades. More about Nick. We have lots to do. This is Jibby Jibilian. Till his dying day, Jibby was making these videos to say how important Draža Mihailovic was, and everything. I mean, he spoke everywhere. And in Toledo University, recognized him in a big citation. And the EAA is the Experimental Aircraft Association from Toledo. These are pilots, and they said, my God, here's this hero that lives right amongst us, and we had no idea about this. So they made sure that he was honored in a real big event, December 7th, 2008, and I was asked to go to be the speaker to talk about the Serbian part. Mike Reichis, and these are the people that would work for the OSS. The OSS is the Office of Strategic Services. Okay. Reviewing the troops. Hotel Hilton. You know, what they said about the Serbs, most of the Serbs people, they gave their beds to the American airmen and they slept on the floor. Some of them were killed defending the Serbian people, but defending the American airmen, but they never told. Not one person was ever captured while they were there. This is just some things I thought that you would like to see what life was like. Dr. Mitriani, patched up. Religious services were held religiously. There's never any doubt as to whose sides they were on. Many of the priests were the best known fighters for truth, liberty, and justice. And Zakai Otas was for the king and country. Zavierom u Bogu, with faith in God. My niece. Holding a steady signal device at night to signal the airplanes. This is how they came in for this rescue. They had bales of hay lining this airfield that they had to make out of, taking out all the rocks. It was just a cornfield, and they had to clear this out. And they gave this here signal about red, red, red. The C-47 gave the same signal. Could they land? We're on, boys, and there was all cheers. The first airplane missed the thing, had to go around again. So the second airplane and third, they landed, but one of them had the wings hurt. Now here they are going to Bari, Italy. Lieutenant Tom Connolly, his son is one of a good friend of mine too, good Facebook friend, and he sent me photos of Tom's evacuation mats and killed in action notices to his grandmother. And these are, I have a website called babamim.com where you can see all this information on there for any researcher. They just sent me a bill for that. I have to pay $450 every year. But anyhow, this picture is very important. The Smithsonian did a wonderful, the Smithsonian Air and Space magazine did a wonderful article on this, but on this rescue. But they used some of my pictures, and this is one that they wanted to keep, and I told them no, I wanted it back, so I got it. These are the different places where the rescue took place. Pranjani is where we were, where Val and I were, and Denny. But they also went to Kochivo and these other two airstrips, but the final evacuation was out. So this was December 1944. And the person that you see down here is Nick Lelich. There's Nick Lelich with his mustache, young, and there's Nick Lelich, old. But there's also J.P. Allen, who was the photographer of all the photos that I just showed you. So going home. The airmen left their shoes for the locals. This is Bobby Marjanovic. Remember the priest's son? And he was the last thing out. The others in the airplane are U.S. airmen, but the fellow in the front is Bobby Marjanovic. He was studying to be a priest in Serbia when the Germans bombed Belgrade. So this is coming back, Bari, Italy. Here's our George Voinovich right here, the one that lived across the street from my dad. There's Jibby, the one that they're honored by Toledo, Nick Lelich, and Bobby Marjanovic. Now, here are a couple of sad pictures of Mihailovic when he was captured. This is another book called Eight Bailed Out by James Inks. He wrote a wonderful book, but there was all kind of opposition to this, and they tried to get him to take it down. But he said, this is what he learned from the Chetniks, how the human spirit can bear up under the most formidable burdens and never be vanquished, but fight on against all odds to victory. The lesson of hope, faith, and courage, and trust in friends. Our betrayal of General Draža Mihailovic, of a great ally, and how we reaped destruction as a result. We betrayed a man who might have been a stalwart friend, and I believe the war in Korea was one of the results of that betrayal. We were not far-seeing because we were not loyal to our principles. Because we compromised our principles, we are living today in General Mihailovic's last prophecy come true. These are different articles. Oh, this film was, the Chetniks was shown in Chicago, and the whole Serbian choir, Sloboda, went there to sing the anthem of the Chetniks, which you would see over there on that music stand. It says, Spremte, Chetnici. But what happened is when it got to England, they instead of being the Chetniks, they changed it to the Partisans. But here now, in Monroeville, many years later, in 1995, we saw the film again for the first time, and this was they showed this film to raise money for the Serbian relief for all the orphans in Serbia. It was the first time that the film appeared on silver screen since World War II. So these are all, like I said, good friends of ours. Nick Lulich is in the middle right there. I think the only one living so far is the one far left. Yeah. All the other ones are gone. This is a good friend of mine from Chicago, and she took us from the Blue Book from 1946. The thing that impressed me most about the setup was the truly amazing security of the Chetnik soldiers and peasants. The airmen had been assembled from an area covering thousands of square miles and all coming together in Pranjani. Thousands of people knew about their existence there in the area. They had been brought together at great risk and high cost by the Chetniks. They were always hounded. Men had been tortured to death and villages destroyed by the Germans in an effort to locate them. These poor suffering people who had been deserted by the American and British governments and who were under merciless attack from both the Germans and Tito's partisans would have received more money than they could have ever dreamed of earning in their entire lives if they just tipped off the Germans of the presence of the Americans. But in spite of all that, not one American was ever betrayed. Their sense of honor and secrecy for the welfare of their beloved Americans was so great that they never even discussed their presence among themselves. Without this heart-shaking loyalty, our entire mission would have been fruitless. Not one airman would have had a chance to escape. He was awarded the Legion of Merit, but it was kept secret because our State Department didn't want to offend Tito. But Curtis Dow's never forgot. Now this is the irony when you think about it, about how here all these Serbs saved the American airmen. The American airmen were bombing Serbia, but Curtis Dow's never forgot. So what he did is he went out and he placed 512 of these flags, American flags, in front of his house because he lived real close to the Dayton Air Force, and the Air Force Museum is down there too. And he had this big sign that was made by his American Legion saying about the rescue of the airmen. And now I say, what loyalty? He said, tell people to Google my name. That was one of his dying wishes. He wanted people to know what he stood for and how much he loved the Serbian people. One of the forgotten 500 rescued by Serbian Chetniks. American airmen didn't forget either. This is the official recognition. This has started it. And I think we owe a lot of this to John Capello, who was a pilot himself. And then he was at the embassy in Yugoslavia. And he said, as a pilot, I should have known about this rescue. But nobody knew about it. And so he has done the most of anybody to make sure that this has become more well known. He not only made these brass things there, but now if you go to Serbia, there's a big monument in the form of an airplane that you walk on, and that's all because of the work that he has done. This is the official poster for the 75th anniversary. So when we left, before we left, Val and I asked everybody to just sign this paper so that people can know that we think about them. But then I figured, well, maybe we could give some money for the kids over there too. And so here, by the time I got there from this one picnic, everything, but a lot of it was for my cousins too. They gave $6,100 for scholarships over there. Here's John Martich, who is president of the Serb National Federation, sending greetings to from the Serb National Federation with a check for $1,000. But John also donated $100 of his own dollars, and that's me giving that to the given the whole book to the secretary of the school. Here's our Val with a proclamation that she brought, and look, she's right here in our dining room. You remember, you see those things over there? And so she gave it to him at home, and was signing this over there. Then we were in the library in Belgrade. This is exciting. There are only 3 libraries outside of the United States that Carnegie funded, and one was in France, one was in Belgium, and this is the 3rd library, which was in Serbia. So here we are here. Now, over here next to me is Stephanie Lulich, Nick Lulich's daughter, and his 2 granddaughters right here, Caroline and Alexandra Rose. These are beautiful posters that were made for sharing the story of the Halyard mission. And here they're playing the Star Spangled Banner and Bože Pravde, which is the Serbian national anthem. Thousands of people were in attendance for the 75th anniversary. Yeah, and I said, to me, this crowd was reminiscent of the 8,000 Chetniks who guarded the American airmen in 1944. Beautiful tribute to the Serbs, because this is what you see. You see all these Allied generals and everything coming to salute this. Now, this is the Kurt Davis and Cole families, and Yeftovich. We see that Charlie Davis never forgot, and he kept sending money back for the Yeftoviches to make their farm a little bit more beautiful. And then these are some of the signs that you see there. There's John Capello right there, the one person that I told you was so responsible for making these things happen. This is on Galjevich Field. So here's my cousin Paul right behind me, and there's Valerie and me, and then you see the 3 guys over there from the U.S. Air Force Academy. And that fella in the middle, he was the son of one of the rescuers. He was about 6 or 7 years old when this rescue happened. And then this is the president of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić. Now, when the president told me to repeat my babamim.com website address 3 times for the rolling news cameras, and then he said he was going to check it out for himself that very afternoon, I almost fainted from joy. John Capello had commissioned to have this big icon painted, and it's on a stand in the church in Planjani. So you have this Jesus and the saints on the top, but right in the middle, you will see a black man, and he's presenting his shoes to a Serb. He was a Tuskegee Airman, and I'm going to tell you more about that in a little while. You'll like it. You'll like the story. So these are our Halyard Mission heroes: George Voinovich, George Buslin, and Nick Lulich. This is like I said, that icon in the church. And here's George Voinovich's family with the priest there. They have a new priest now. Okay, so what I delivered to the Ivo Andrić School is this banner that some of the rescued airmen had given to me, and then I gave it to the director of the school. These 2 girls here are granddaughters of our heroes, and they're showing their grandfather's dog tags. New friends forever. There's our Valerie, and here she is with General Draža Mihailović's great-grandson right there. And then what they do, they have all kind of little things for the kids to participate in. And as we were leaving Planjani, we got a great announcement from home. And we were just leaving, and my cousin Jordan called to tell his dad that we have a new tradition bearer right there. Paul, we were in the van. Paul jumped out of the van and went by to buy some more Yeftovich wine for his grandchild's birth. Now, on the back of your papers, I have all these different things. It says, despite being there at age 83, I had 16 layers of cake on the icing. And these are all the things. Finding my paternal Karlovich grandparents, relatives that we didn't even know that we had because we hadn't heard from them from World War II and everything. They searched for us for 10 years. But it was one of the greatest things. Being welcomed to the Royal Palace, you'll see that. So, here we are. We're treated, I got there before Denny and my son and came. So, these, like I said, these are the people that looked for us for 10 years. And they took me out to this beautiful restaurant in Belgrade. You'll see my flag. The flag plays a big, important role everywhere. And in this newspaper that I put in, a Serbian newspaper, it shows all the different places where that flag has been. We visited the National Art Gallery. Rose and I belong to the Philip Bizic Choir. This is a painting of Philip Bizic, and over here is the burning of Saint Sava. The Turks burned Saint Sava's body, thinking that they're going to get rid of him, and instead they built a magnificent cathedral on the very spot. Okay, now we're in Skadalia. If you ever go to Belgrade, you definitely want to go to Skadalia. That's the whole street is restaurant after restaurant after restaurant, and every restaurant has tamburashi players in it, so you have a good time. So here we are. We're going around the table. Let me see. but that Greg Boyer over here. So while we're there in the restaurant, we're going around to introduce ourselves to everybody. This guy, Greg Boyer, is right across from me, next to Denny. And he says his name, and he said that he's from Harrisburg, Lancaster, that area. And why is he there? Is because that he's a state policeman, and that he knows that there were 2 state policemen that were rescued airmen, and he's making a museum to them. Oh my God, I couldn't wait for it was my turn. You know what's going to happen. But anyhow, the next picture you see is how the government finally, the communists are done. They were done like in the 1990s. But the government has finally, this is such a big breakthrough that they finally recognized this rescue right there with these official stamps. And I have to credit my cousin Paul for running to the U.S. Post Office, not the U.S. Post Office, the Serbian Post Office right away to get us these stamps. And then I thank my cousin Denny for paying for all the framing of them. You'll see that here, where not only the stamps, but the pictures that he made of the villagers and of Draža Mihailović and the other things are here. He made that, and 3 smaller ones are going to the Serb Singing Federation, 1 to the Serb National Federation, and the last one is going to the Serb National Defense. Yes, thank you, Rose. Okay. So there's the director of the library, and then here's this Alex Svetovic. He's like a big politician over there. Over here we have cousin Denny, and this is the Tuskegee Airman Lieutenant Colonel James Walker's son, Kenneth. He was there, and I'm going to tell you more about what he did. There's the Voinovich, the whole Voinovich family over there with my son, Nick Bizic, at the end. having Nick there was like having gold. I was just so thrilled that he could experience this with me. Then we went to the beautiful St. Sava Cathedral. This is on the spot where they burned the St. Sava's remains, and it's like one of the largest Orthodox cathedrals in the world. And here's St. Sava in front of it. Inside, it's just absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. Now watch this. Here's the flag in 1989 in Detroit for the 600th anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo. And standing here with me are Princess Catherine and Prince Alexander. So I asked them, could you please sign my flag? This flag was made by my husband's aunt, Newbie, when she was dying to come to America. It says, God watches the Serbs, and it has crossed the American flag and the Serbian flag. So they signed it in 1989. So after we went to the Royal Palace in Belgrade. So Heir Prince Philip signs my flag like his parents did in 1989 for the 600th anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo. This was September 19th, 2024. You'll love this. So the whole contingent is going like this in a circle, and Prince Philip's standing over there with his dad, and they said, are there any questions or comments? And I said, I have one. And I said, do you think Prince Philip could sign my flag? Because I said, you all did it in 1989. He bounded over. I mean, there's no way you could not help but love him. And then he said, real sheepishly, not sheepishly, but how should I say, humbly, he said, do you want me to sign it on the front or the back? I said, of course, on the front. And I just love this. Now, in my hand, I have this magazine that our father made in 1948, that inside has all the pictures most of the pictures that I showed you here tonight. Then we went on to the Parliament building in Belgrade. And we're inside here, coming up. There's Denny right there in the middle. And this is my son and me outside of Parliament, where Parliament recognized, again, for the first time, the most important part of this here rescue. It's very historic, very historic. And then studying old photos from World War II while having lunch at the Hotel Moskva, the famous attraction. For years and years, every time I went to Belgrade, I wanted to go to the Hotel Moskva, but I figured out it's too expensive. My cousin Paul said, we're going to go. And so we went for lunch, and Denny and my son also met us there. Why this was important is my Aunt Rose and George Voinovich were studying there in Belgrade in 1934, and I have a postcard from them where all the 10 stipendists from across the United States were over there studying with all their names on it. So it was very, very meaningful to me. Now we're in Pranjani, and of all things, I've been Facebook friends, see with this artist standing there next to his wife. I'm in the middle. He's over here to my right. For 4 years, we've been Facebook friends, and I finally got to meet him. I never thought I would, but he traveled up about 2.5 hours to meet us there, and it was such a surprise. These are some of the other things that you see, the plaques along this thing that looks like an airstrip. Now, remember I said about the boots? Remember about the boots? Kenneth Walker of California, shown above, right here, presented the new boots to the person who saved his Tuskegee Airman father in 1944. He was 16 years at the time, and now he's 96. He says, and this is in front of everybody, he says, it's time that you got some new boots. The ceremonies were very, very impressive. There we are. And then I was interviewed many times on TV. And there's my wonderful Zoran and with the flag. Okay, you'll love this story. Major Steve Smith was there at that restaurant meeting in Belgrade, in Skadalia. But you know, I can't hear well, so I didn't know when he was introducing himself what he said. But I only learned this later. I don't know if even Denny knows this. Major Steve Smith's uncle was there at when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. But he was also one of the rescued airmen in Serbia. Can you believe that? Just fantastic. I said, oh my gosh, I loved it. So he gave me one of those 15th Army Air Force things. This was such an exciting time in history for all of us. These are the cousins up there. This is the director of the school, and he brought out Valerie's her thing that she brought from the House of Representatives, and then also mine. But I want you to pay attention to that couple way up there at the end. Again, you know, because I can't hear well, I say yes, yes, yes to a lot of questions. So this lady was leaving from the Yeftovich Ranch, and I said, who was that? They says, Molly McCool. I says, you mean like Mike McCool? And they says, yeah. I said, bring her back, bring her back. And so here she came back, and it was her father was one of the rescued airmen from Texas, but he also tried, he was like the lawyer that tried very, very hard to keep General Draža Mihailović from going to this mock trial. And what she and her husband are doing, and they've been doing for the last 7 years, is financing this movie that's supposed to be all about this famous rescue. And there's the flag again. So here we are just talking. Those important dignitaries were everywhere. Okay. I love this one too. So Nick and I are walking out of the school, and we're saying how nice it was to see those banners that he guarded so well and everything. And coming at us were 4 kids, but the 2 boys stepped out, and they said real sheepishly, could we take your picture? Could we take a picture with us? And I said, only if you bring the 2 girls along too. So then we're there, and then I shocked them. They couldn't believe this. They didn't know that I knew the song too. Watch this. So then you all know what happened with the Strictly Herald. It was so nice that they came and did that beautiful story. It was, thank you very much to them. They did a nice job. And I'm going to end next to this. Like, I have one more slide after this. But this is General Draža Mihailović, and I have here my 18-year-old granddaughter who's going to be graduating this year. And my gift to her and the family is I'm going to take her over so that she sees, she learns too, just like my son did, what happens. She is my inheritor. When you talk about ironies and tragedies, The same mountains that stopped the crippled airmen from flying over them, sheltered and blanketed the airmen. A recap. Serbia was a free country, and Croatia and Slovenia were countries under the Austrian Empire in World War I before they formed the kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes, which later became the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, later became the Republic of Yugoslavia. Today, Yugoslavia, formerly the size of Wyoming, get that in your head, just a little bit bigger than our state of Pennsylvania, is 7 different countries now, or they like to think it's 7 different countries now, thanks to NATO. Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, Macedonia, and Kosovo. Never. They say, well, 100 countries recognize Kosovo. Well, there are 100 other countries that did not recognize Kosovo. Kosovo is the most important piece of land, because it's not land, it's the heart and soul of the Serbian people, that they cannot let that happen. And if the world powers have their way, they'll try to take Vojvodina too. Vojvodina is another province up above Serbia, but it's also the breadbasket of Serbia. Now that's a real travesty of justice. In the movie, The Great Escape, there were 200 captured men who tried to escape, but only 76 made it out. In Operation Halyard, all 512 men made their escape alive, thanks to General Draža Mihailović and his Chetnik forces, and of course, the brave pilots of the 15th Army Corps and the OSS. What should have been trumpeted as a great victory instead was stored in the top secret files of our government. But the rescued airmen never ever gave up. The sincere gratitude of the returning airmen kept it fresh in the minds of those who experienced it, and now, because so few of us are left, it's up to us. It's up to all of us to tell the truth. I think it's a good time, Top Gun, for you to tell what you just told me tonight. Top Gun, stand up, tell what you said. Listen to this.
Yeah, the book, The Forgotten 500. I've read that book twice. I was so amazed at the bravery of those people. You know, we all take risks every day, not usually risking our lives. How wonderful.
Thank you so much. And over here, Chuck, here's a fighter pilot right here.
And Lynn asked me to think a little bit, particularly about the book. Having been a pilot for 40 years, I had the pleasure a long time ago flying the DC-3, which is the civilian version of the C-47. So I have firsthand knowledge of the difficulties that those men had pulling off what they did do. The book, I purchased that off the internet many years ago. I have 2 sons, both pilots, and after I read the book, it was required reading for both of them. Great experience. What they did is just phenomenal.
Thank you, Chuck. And now Val, come on. This is how I met Val. Watch this. Come on, Val.
Well, no, I appreciate this book, and as Min mentioned, how many of you seen the movie The Great Escape? Okay, Steve McQueen, right? When I read this book, that movie has nothing on this. The amazing, when he mentioned about the bravery of these guys to create this field under the nose of the Germans, they would do it during the night and then put the cows back on the field, and then they would go and disappear. They would take the rocks, and the Serbian people would move the airmen from house to house to house so that they would never stay. The operation to manage this, all under the threat of death, meantime, our U.S. government was telling the airmen, oh, well, if you get down there, you know, we have a affiliation with Tito, but Tito's people were actually killing our guys. And they said not to go to Mihailovich, but it was the people who landed in the areas that were under General Mihailovich, they were the ones who were being saved by the people. And when Mim and I connected, and it was an absolute honor for me to have Mim invite me to go to Operation Halyard in the 75th anniversary, because when I first got elected, and by the way, I found this book, I just happened to be doing honor flight down in DC, taking, you know, World War II veterans to all the memorials, and I see this book, and I said, wow, you know, here's Aliquippa, here's Ambridge. My dad was a dentist in Ambridge, I recognized some of the names, and I said, oh, this is really great. Well, when I got elected and they asked me, what was the most influential book that you've read and why? And I said, oh, Forgotten 500. The number one reason is that regardless of political affiliation or country or whatever, these people did the right thing. And that's what was so important. And it talks about truth, honor, all the things that Mim had mentioned. That book should be required reading. So anyway, thank you, Mim.
Thank you, my dear Al. Okay.
I'd like to say something. Mimi has around her neck a medal. Several of you are Roman Catholic, and we all know that Roman Catholics, the Pope is the head of the church. Well, in the Serbian Orthodox faith, the Patriarch is the head of the church. And Mimi was awarded, I've been calling her for I have tears in my eyes. Mimi, I've been calling her the American Serbian ambassador for over 25 years, affectionately. And Mimi was awarded this medal from the Patriarch just about 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, in Pittsburgh. So that's the highest medal that any civilian could get. The other thing I'd like to share is Mimi and I went to Serbia together in 1989. And when they put the dome on the big St. Sava church, that was the most breathtaking moment in my life for 100,000 people. And I had the privilege, I used to be a professional photographer besides a psychologist. And I had the privilege of taking all the pictures at 18 different monasteries for the Serbs as a volunteer for 2 weeks. And I lived on bananas, because although Mindy likes meat, I don't. I'm a seafood person. In Serbia, you know, there's a lot of meat. But it was wonderful. And when Serbia got bombed and everything, what's really nice is the Patriarch in Serbia and the American Diocese here have all my pictures that were the original work of every single church and monastery in Serbia before they got bombed, so that now they know exactly what it looks like, because I took them on slides and I took them on 36 millimeter film. And I'll never forget, the Serbian choirs were traveling with. They said, Rose, your pictures aren't going to take. I said, listen, God wants me here for a reason, and every picture took.
So Rose said that there were 100,000 people in the church that day, which is true. But what she failed to mention is that the next couple of days when we went down to Kosovo, CNN reported that there were 2.2 to 3 million Serbs there. And I tell people that was the happiest day of my life. They says, how could you say that? I said, it was absolutely incredible. And my wedding day was like second. I'm telling you the truth. I never saw anything like that. 7,000 buses as far as your eye could see, bringing those people down. Villagers humbly walking with bread and little things like that. As far as your eye could see were just people that stood there for a day and a half without moving. There was no place to go to the bathroom or anything like that, but they endured because they wanted to be there for Vidovdan, the 600th anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo. So, all right, it's up to all of us to tell the truth. Why should we care? Why we visit history? Truth is not static. The world is not flat. The sun does not revolve around the earth. And because it matters, and General Mihailovich deserves to be remembered for what he lived for, fought for, and died for. Like I told you before, there's been a $100,000 reward for finding General Mihailo body, and to this day, no one knows where his grave is. But I have this here, Vostani Serbia. It says, get up, Serbia, and tell the truth. And this is